there, jerks, and welcome back to our Beer of the Week subscription. He's Luke.
He's Matt.
And this week we're drinking one of our own beers. So when we're not doing our day jobs as Beer Jerk, we're also doing our day jobs as Small Gods. Small Gods started out as a collaborative project where we would team up with different breweries to brew interesting, historical and creative beers that the kind of beers that we couldn't buy, that people weren't brewing. We kicked it off with our pals at Double Vision Brewing, who we brewed a Braunschweiger Mumm with, and since then we've brewed...
well, that was a beer that no one had made in 500 years,
yeah.
And I was just desperate to drink a Mumm and see what it tastes like. So spent a while looking through recipe books and, well, history books really, and God knows how close it was to an actual Mumm because no one is alive that's ever drank one.
But we're not here to talk about Mumm.
But it was a tasty beer.
It was. We're here to talk about table beer.
Yeah, cheers.
So this is Galahad.
Yeah, so the latest Small Gods beer, and as Matt was alluding to, we started out at Beer Jerk with us Beer Jerk guys wanting to collaborate with the brewers, and we were home brewers as well, so Small Gods was the name of our home brewery. So yeah, we worked with a handful of brewers to just make interesting beers that we wanted to drink. And that was maybe 2.5 years ago. And just since then, we're still all about collaborations. We've got a few in tanks at various breweries around the country at the moment. But also, we've started brewing some beers just by ourselves, just as Small Gods. So the first ever Small Gods solo beer was just before Christmas, right?
Yeah, I can't even remember what it was now.
Santa Santa Santa.
It was Santa Santa Santa. That was our coconut chocolate imperial stout. Since then we've done 2 more, one of which is Galahad, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and the other one we'll talk about in a few weeks.
Were you a big fan of table beer?
I am a big fan of table beer. My life goal at this point is to make table beer a thing, and I'm very excited about this because this is our first commercially brewed table beer, and I think everyone should be drinking table beer all the time. So, what is a table beer, I hear you ask? It's pretty loose.
Here's a table, here's a beer.
A table beer is essentially a low alcohol Belgian-inspired pale ale, and it's designed to pair perfectly with every food, designed to be shared, to have a few of. It's the ultimate, in my mind, session beer. So this is around this is 3.2%, but to my mind, a table beer sits under 4, and usually fermented with a Belgian yeast strain, though some kind of have a broader interpretation of that. You may have tried Garage Project's table beer 4 Legs Good, which is a slightly sour interpretation. People often do kind of wild and spontaneous ferments with their table beers, so you get tart and funky versions as well. But we decided to approach this with a fairly clean base. And yeah, it's all about balance. I mean, it's about having malt character, hop character, and yeast character all playing really nicely together to create something that's super flavorful and drinkable, but yeah, low alcohol, so you don't have to worry about putting too many away.
I think one of the things that I love about table beer is that, yeah, you can drink plenty of it and it goes great with food, which is a major thing. That was a reason behind why the style was created. But also, it's a style that's designed to be lower in alcohol. So personally, I'm not a massive fan of non-alcohol beers, and I'm not a big fan of low alcohol beers.
But there have been some, they have been getting better, and there are some great examples on the market at the moment.
There are, definitely, but for me as a drinker, it's not what I would choose necessarily. But I think with a table beer, because the style is designed around being lower in alcohol, it's not as though you've taken an IPA, which, you know, a West Coast IPA ideally should be region of 6.5–7% or thereabouts, and the alcohol is part of...
It's the flavour, it's part of the experience, and alcohol adds something to beer. It adds body and it adds character. Whereas
this is the beer. This is how it's designed to be. This isn't a shrunk down version of something else. This is what it is.
Yeah. So we use a bunch of different hops in here: Fuggles, Amarillo, Atanum, and Centennial. And excuse Luke playing with the camera for a minute.
Keep going. No one will notice.
No one knows. Seamless production value here as Luke plugs in the microphone.
I may have forgot to plug in the microphone.
If you notice a drastic increase in our audio quality, there you go. So yeah, 4 different hops in here. God, we're professionals. Fuggles, Amarillo, Eternum, and Centennial. So a pretty broad base of hops there. Fuggles is a kind of one of our favourite hops. It's a classic English style hops.
Yeah.
That's going to give you that kind of herbal spicy note that you get in there. Amarillo and Eternum give you a kind of a little bit of a light fruitiness. There's kind of a peachy fruit character in there, but again, not like an IPA. It's not overstated. And then Centennial is more your kind of classic American West Coast hop with a little bit of pine in there. So none of those are designed to kind of spike out and give you heaps of tropical and heaps of citrus and all that. It's designed to give a mellow and rounded hop note that enhances everything. The malt character, we used mainly a base of ale malt in there, with a healthy dose of my favourite malt, Vienna, as well as a little bit of wheat and a little bit of light crystal, which kind of, though the Vienna is a lightly killed malt, but it kind of gives it a really kind of nuttiness to it, and I really like the character that it gives to a lot of beers. Crystal adds a bit of sweetness, and wheat is there to add a little bit of body. And that kind of gives you a really nice kind of rounded malt base where you're getting some malt flavour in there. It doesn't feel thin and too light despite the 3%, and really kind of plays in balance with the hops. And then the yeast in there kind of gives it kind of coming in with a bit of a spicy note from the Belgian yeast. But given that it's lower alcohol, it's not as full on as an expression as you get in Belgian beers like triples and quads and doubles, because the yeast produces those flavors when it's eating sugars. So the higher the alcohol, the more the yeast is going to produce those flavors as a byproduct. So again, it's relatively restrained and all designed to tie in balance. I've talked enough about that for the moment.
Well, now you know the recipe, so you can brew your own at home. All the beers that we make as Small Gods are beers that we want to drink, obviously. So I've really enjoyed drinking this beer in the last few weeks. We've got it on tap here at the Fridge and Flagon. Just on a warm day or after Beer Jack Run Club, it's just perfect to smash this beer. And there's of course, there's some different types of beer, but beer for different occasions. And something that I often think about and talk about when we're drinking English real ales, so things like milds and bitters, a beer like this, you can be a wanker like us and you can sniff it and go on about the hedgerow blackberry characters of the Fuggles and have a great old time, but you could also just drink it and have a good conversation with your friends or read a book. It's almost like the beer equivalent of a good cup of tea. And it's delicious, but it's not whacking you around the face with loads of chocolate and coconut and port and all these weird flavours that we're also pretty partial to in some of our other beers. So it's good everyday drinking beer.
And I think as pointed out, it's flavourful without being over the top, without kind of whacking you around the face with anything, which is one of the reasons why it pairs so well with food. Is that it's got a little bit of sweetness, it's got a little bit of hoppiness, it's got a little bit of spice to it, but it's not kind of something that's going to overwhelm anything. It's going to just sit in the background and meld with a bunch of different flavours.
Well, we've tried 2 times with Mum to do commercial releases and try and make Mum a thing in New Zealand and the world. It hasn't really caught on. Table beer, I'm hoping it might catch on amongst Kiwis. I'm hoping some of the breweries will take up brewing table beers. Just such a great beer to serve in the tap room and serve it by the jug.
In service of my agenda of getting everyone to drink more table beer in general, Sawmill have a table saison out at the moment, which you should definitely check out.
I'm keen to try that.
Yeah, and we are brewing another table beer in about 2 weeks' time. So
Galahad has almost run out, so if you're keen, hop onto the website and get some. But actually,
I think we've got 1 case left. It's also our fastest selling Small Gods beer so far, which is really gratifying for me and my table beer agenda. I can justify brewing more of them.
So another table beer is coming out in the Round Table series.
Yeah, so moving on to the artwork and the inspiration for the beer. So as you can see, it's we went a little bit unusual with the label here. Went for a bit of a skinny label, and going for natural wood finish and a bit of a woodcut image there, inspired by Galahad.
Yeah, so you know, often you have like a super good idea, and you're like, why has no one else thought of this? So I had the idea of naming a series of table beers after Knights of the Round Table, and me and Matt were just discussing how amazing this was. And I was like, Matt, why has no one done this? Why has no one named their table beer? Why has no one done a series? And Matt was like, yeah, to start off, it's a table beer. Also, who does a fucking series of table beers? Nobody. So we are doing a series of table beers. There's got to be at least, what, 8, 10 Knights of the Round Table?
Oh,
there's a few nights to get through.
There's like 90 of them. There's probably 10, 12 that you've heard of, and we'll probably get through those first, but you expect to see
Merlin and Arthur and Guinevere and all the peripheral round table characters.
So you might see this going for a little while.
And as Matt alluded to, there's just so much you can do with table beer. There's a whole, without any spoilers, there's an endless amount of different types of table beer you can do. So,
well, it's one of the nice things about that whole Belgian farmhouse family of beers, is that there's so many regional variations and interpretations, and the style guidelines are so loose because it's a style that evolved organically in different villages throughout Belgium, and farmers and locals drinking their 3% pale ale, and it's brewed with the local yeast and the local malt and the local hops, and it's interpreted differently in every town, and there's a huge amount of variety there to play with.
So next in the series will be out in maybe 5 or 6 weeks, so that's
June.
In June?
Yeah.
So that's
first of June it's scanning.
So that's going to be a collaboration with Craft Beer Sweetheart, our friend Logan, hopefully he's watching. So more details of that to follow. And I'm almost out of beer, so we should start wrapping it up.
We haven't even talked about Galahad yet.
Oh yeah. So Galahad was one of the Knights of the Round Table, and he was pure of heart, and he went on a mission to get the Holy Grail, which is what this artwork is.
Well, Galahad was the knight who basically kicked off the Arthurian knight's quest for the Holy Grail. He was the son of Lancelot, one of the most famous Knights of the Round Table, and when he came to King Arthur's court, he was the only knight who was ever able to defeat Lancelot in a duel, and he earned his seat at the Round Table. And some of these histories around the Knights of the Round Table are written very strangely and with a lot of assumed foreknowledge and stuff like that. So there was a whole thing about him. He passed the test of the Siege Perilous, which was a seat at the Round Table that only the one who was destined to find the Holy Grail could sit in without dying. And I could find very little else about this myth about the Siege Perilous and about how he was the only one who managed to sit in it, but he did.
Well, it was before the internet was a big thing. So yeah.
So Galahad sat at the Siege Perilous, which is this legendary seat at the Round Table, and he led the knights on. He inspired the knights to go off in quest for the Holy Grail. All of the knights went off on their separate ways, but Galahad went off with 2 other knights of the Round Table, Sir Percival and Sir Bors, and they came across the place where the Holy Grail was being kept, and he was judged pure of heart and allowed to take the Grail to return it to King Arthur's court at Camelot. However, it gets super weird. On his quest back to Camelot, he was visited by a vision of Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus' stepdad, and he was because he was so pure of heart, he was offered to choose his own time of dying, and for some reason he chose to die then and there, and to ascend to heaven with Joseph, leaving poor Percival and Bors to lug his corpse back to Camelot, presumably with the Holy Grail. It's all a bit vague, but
if anyone is still with us after all of that,
that's who Galahad is.
There's a little Easter egg note printed on the bottom of the can, so check that out, Grail fans. And I should take this moment to point out that in no way do we condone the actions of the Crusaders. Galahad is a historical / mythological character, and we wanted to honour that story. But crusading, probably not a great thing.
Bad thing. Don't crusade.
I think you're all going to really enjoy this week's beer. And in other news, we're hoping things are coming sort of back to normal. Everyone's had COVID, it seems, so hopefully we're going to start visiting us at our bar, the Fridge and Flagon, again, and we'll be able to open up for normal hours. We had a fantastic Behind the Brews event with Soren from 8 Wide a couple of weeks ago, and we're lining one up with Hamish from Deep Creek, which will be soon. So that'll be just drinking 6 of the most iconic beers from a brewery with the brewer, with me peppering them with questions, interview style. So you'll be able to find out about that online. We have got the Beer Jerk Run Club Half Marathon, which is coming up on the 30th of April. So that's 4 weeks away. That's going to be a really fun time. And on the same day, we're doing a teeny tiny beer festival here at the Fridge and Flagon. Have we decided a name for it?
Nanofest.
Nanofest, yeah, Nanofest, catchy.
We're still in the process of putting it together, the beer list, but it's going to be a list of the smallest breweries in New Zealand. So some really cool, tiny, independent producers who are doing fun and interesting stuff that the big boys can't get away with. So expect lots of stuff coming out of barrels.
Or too smart to get away with.
Yeah.
They're just like fiscally irresponsible.
Yeah.
It's being brewed.
Yeah.
Which is what we're all about, right?
Yeah. 6 litre bottles of dark raspberry sour, barrel aged dark raspberry sours, and ice distilled pastry stouts and stuff like that. So that's going to be a great time. Expect to hear more of that about that in the coming weeks as we pull the details together.
So that's the same day as the Beer Jerk Run Club Half Marathon. So the marathon will finish as the festival begins. It's going to be a big sweaty day. That's April 30th, which is a Saturday. We're also going to be doing some kind of fresh hop event. Sadly, we're not doing the fresh hop bus tour this year. So all our friends at the venues just thought and us, thought it probably wasn't the best idea to have free minibuses going around, but we will be doing something for Fresh Hop here next month. And also there's the Fresh Hop mixed cases that are, they're pretty limited actually, because it's just a batch that all the brewers are doing, so they've been pre-sales. So if you're keen to get hold of all of the Fresh Hop beers, we've got the whole harvest box, which is 28 cans of all the best Fresh Hop beers that we can get our hands on. And if you're not that thirsty or you don't have any friends to share with, we've got 2 half-size boxes as well with just 14 beers in each.
Or if you're super thirsty and you do have lots of friends with, you can host your own Fresh Hop festival in your garden by buying a few of the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, have a little festival in your own back garden.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoy Table Beer. Tell everyone about Table Beer, how great Table Beer is. Talk to your local breweries about brewing more Table Beer. We're going to brew more Table Beer. Have you heard about Table Beer?
What do you think? Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Yeah.